Greetings everybody, coming to you from my 2014 Mercedes-Benz GLK 250 BlueTech diesel. I wanted to address a common misconception about diesel particulate filter DPF regeneration. I see so many comments on videos, so many replies in forums and so forth, where people are under the impression that if you get out on the highway and drive at X speed for X miles, that'll take care of your DPF regeneration. Well, that's not how it works. So the way it works is your DPF soot mass is calculated by the computer with sensors that the car has, and once the sensors detect that the soot mass reaches a predefined threshold, then a DPF regen will be triggered. Now there's certain conditions that have to be met. It's different for different cars. Like some have to have a certain fuel level, some have to have certain temperatures reached with the engine and so forth. So given all those parameters are met, which in any normal drive, highway or not, after a long enough time, that will suffice for a DPF regen to be triggered. So the DPF regen will only happen when the computer calls for it based on the soot mass. It has nothing to do with you deciding to get out onto the highway and drive for so many miles or whatever. The other thing is a DPF regen will also happen when you're not on the highway, even in stop and go traffic. I have hooked up a computer to multiple different diesel cars to watch DPF regens in progress, and you don't have to be on the highway, you don't have to be driving fast, you don't have to have a certain RPMs. I've actually had DPFs in action even when I'm sitting at a stoplight. So that's just a common misconception I wanted to address. You don't tell the car when to regenerate. It tells you when it's going to regenerate. Well, I say that way, but it doesn't actually tell you anything on most modern cars, because there's no light or notification or anything like that to tell you when a DPF regen is in progress. In some cars it's more noticeable than others. I've made some videos commenting on that in the past. The one thing that is common amongst all cars is in the middle of a DPF regen, under the hood, you'll smell, it smells like burning plastic, because everything gets up really high on the exhaust temperatures. I want to say about 1,000 degrees, give or take, maybe more. That's what it needs to do to trigger the DPF regen. The other thing too is you are perfectly fine to interrupt a DPF regen in the middle. The car, once it reaches operating temperature again, will resume it after all the parameters are reached. And again, this is all seamless and designed to have zero user intervention, and even zero user knowledge, unless you hook up some kind of a monitor to watch what's happening. So just wanted to say that for all of you who mistakenly think that you control the DPF regeneration by the style of your driving, you don't. It does not work like that. Now, that being said, I will say something that I did observe for the first time ever on one of my cars. So when I had my diesel Equinox, I did notice that the soot grams would very, very gradually drop when driving long distances on the highway. So I wouldn't necessarily call that a regen, but I think if there's a term for it, maybe that's a passive regen. It's not the same as an active regen, because an active regen can burn off all the soot in, I don't know, like maybe 5 to 10 minutes. The passive regen maybe took care of like 10% on a 2-hour drive. It was just very gradual, and it was actually something that I hadn't seen on any of my other cars. I had a monitor hooked up to my Cruise diesel at all times, and I could watch the regens happening, and I never saw anything like that on the Cruise. It was only the 1.6 in the Equinox that would do that. I've never monitored the DPF regens in this particular car that I'm driving right now. I'm gonna have to see if I can figure out how to hook up my my little scanner that sits on top of the steering wheel column. You have to program it to read the certain, I think they're called PIDs. Each PID has a preset function, like you can measure the grams of soot or the percentage of full of the DPF or the exhaust temperature, manifold absolute pressure, that sort of thing. A bunch of different parameters. Scan gauge, that's what it was called, my little scan gauge. I've made videos about that in other cars as well. It's a useful little tool. Yeah, I may, now that I'm talking about it, I may try to hook that up on this car to see what I can get from that. I think I did a video about that on my Cruise and what I was measuring and what each one of those means. So if I get that hooked up again, I may do another video, update video on that. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them down in the comments there. Have a great day, everyone.